Okay. Thank you. Hello. My name is Michael Hausding and I work for Switch. Most of you know Switch as the operator of the Swiss Research and Education Network. But Switch also operates the registry and the authoritative servers for .ch. And the talk I'm giving today is about another aspect in another organization that runs DNS server, and that is Quad9. So before I start, who of you knows about Quad9? Who uses Quad9 as a resolver? Okay, so quite a few. Unfortunately, nobody from Quad9 could make it here, but I think we will get this in one of the SwiNOG meetings next year. And I will give you a short overview what happened with Quad9 and why they moved to Switzerland. Before I start, I want to make clear what is the relation between Switch and Quad9. So Quad9 is now a Swiss foundation, and Switch is one of the two founders of that foundation. The other founder is PCH. PCH was the founder of Quad9 and then the service about 5 years ago. Switch has a mandate by the Office of Communication that comes together with the contract to run the registry for .ch, and within that contract we are mandated to support Quad9 with services in Switzerland. And one of these support is that I give a speech about what Quad9 is and what they do in Switzerland. But Switch is not only the NRAN and the registry. Switch also operates Switch Cert, which is national cert in Switzerland, and we collect phishing and malware URLs, and we also share them with Quad9. Let's say if a university user reports a phishing site against his universities, we will validate that and also block it in our network, but we will also share that with Quad9 and others so they can protect their users. So Quad9 is a recursive resolver server, so it resolves domain names to IP addresses, and it has a special mission. So the mission of Quad9 is to provide security and privacy via DNS-based services to a worldwide audience at no cost and with comparative or better performance as existing systems. One of the reasons here is to reduce the harm of criminal behavior in the internet to internet users and networks. And most of you know these days ransomware and phishing are all over the place. And security on the DNS level, unfortunately, is needed. Quad9 has secondary goals. These are basically how does Quad9 wants to achieve its mission, besides running services that can be used directly by the end users, and that is that Quad9 wants to also demonstrate best practices. For example, we saw before there are open resolvers, and open resolvers can be configured to prevent them being abused for reflection attacks. And as I understood in the presentation before, Quad9 has done well there with preventing attackers from abusing the Quad9 resolvers. Another thing is that Quad9 tries to be very transparent and also helps to improve developments and protocols on DNS. And last but not least, Quad9 is beneficial for Swiss users because especially if they are not in their home network, they have a resolver they can trust that is globally available and has low latency. But a special target also is underdeveloped markets where you don't have that much of DNS recursive services available. And that is why Quad9 has global implementation or global presence for its DNS resolvers. Quad9 was founded 5 years ago in California. In the meantime, it is a not-for-profit based in Switzerland. This is something Switch supported, where Switch supported Quad9. And that was something that was starting in mid-2020, and by February 2021, we were ready with all the paperwork in Switzerland, and we established a Swiss not-for-profit foundation in Zurich. So it's a gemeinnützige Stiftung in Zurich now, Quad9. Quad9 is a small team. It's less than 10 people globally, and they mostly have ISP background, and they run the global infrastructure. And now the organization where they are bound to is the Swiss Foundation in Zurich. Initially, Quad9 was founded with support from IBM, the GCA, and PCH, and they are still all supporters of the Quad9 Foundation. Quad9 has two things it provides to its users. One is privacy, the other is security. And for the security, Quad9 relies on block list providers that provide threat intel, so basically domain names of phishing and malware domains that are blocked. On the privacy layer, Quad9 does no logging of client IPs, of source IPs, and is compatible with the GDPR and with Swiss data protection laws. So how does Quad9 survive? It's a not-for-profit, and so far there are less than 10 people, but still there is essentially cost to run Quad9. There's corporate sponsorship, for example, from IBM and other sponsors. Quad9 tries to get grants from governments and other organizations that give grants to not-for-profits. There is a large part of in-kind donations, so like servers or network connectivity. So most of these servers that run, they run on servers that are donated and on bandwidth that is donated or not paid. And there are also individual support from individual donors. So why did Quad9 move to Switzerland? One reason was for sure to leave the US, because in the US there is no national legislation that gives people that are not US citizens or not residents in the US any rights on privacy and on their data. Switzerland has a jurisdiction that is on the criminal and on the civil side very well positioned. For example, complaints against privacy violations can be brought to court by anyone worldwide, so they don't need to be Swiss citizens. There is no history of secret laws for data collection. For example, in Switzerland, there is no gag order where someone can tell you you have to do that. So there's at least some transparency on that layer, what the authorities in Switzerland can do. Switzerland has multilateral assistance agreements with most states, so if other authorities want to target Quad9, they have to go over Swiss authorities. Switzerland has a low corruption index, or very high in corruption perception index score. And another thing is that Quad9 talked to the Swiss authorities, the Office of Communication, and they clearly placed Quad9 not as an internet access provider, which made clear what are the obligations Quad9 has and what it hasn't. So there was an intention to put itself under European and Swiss law, something that Quad9 didn't thought about, or a risk that they accepted is that there are civil cases that can be brought up in any European country that has signed the Lugano Convention, and these civil cases can be enforced in Switzerland. And one thing that unfortunately happened very soon after Quad9 was founded was that Sony Music was suing Quad9 in Germany, in Hamburg. And it is 2 days ago, I think, that the court in Hamburg ruled that the injunction for Quad9 to block one of the resolution of one domain name that is used in a copyright violation is not lifted. And so this will continue. And unfortunately, that has some very high cost and impact on Quad9. But Quad9 is confident to fight this fight. This is one of the most controversial issues with DNS and DNS security, and that is blocking. Quad9 blocks malware and phishing, for example, but Quad9 is very clear that they don't want to block content. And to put it short, Quad9 believes that blocking on the DNS level should always be in line with the user's intent and with consent. There's one Swiss law, that's the gambling law, that requires internet access provider to block certain domain names. Quad9 talked with the Office of Communication, and as Quad9 is not an internet access provider, they don't have to block any of these domain names. But there is some blocking Quad9 does, and Quad9 tries to be transparent about that. Quad9 blocks malware, phishing, stalkerware, spyware, command and control systems, lookalike domains, or domains that are most likely used for phishing, and other risks that are harmful to the user. You can look up on the Quad9 page if a domain is blocked, and if you think it's a mistake, you can always ask it to be removed. Quad9 doesn't want to block content, and I think that's very important to understand. The blocking information itself comes from threat intel providers, so this is security companies, and now we also have Switch and abuse.ch, so two organizations in Switzerland delivering threat intel data to Quad9. And that is important for Swiss users because some of the threats are very local or very regional, and most of the US threat intel providers provide maybe phishing against Apple and PayPal, but not against the Swiss university or a smaller Swiss bank. Let me say a few words about technologies. So there are 3 locations currently in Geneva, Lausanne, and Zurich. There's another one in Altenrhein at the Rheintal Exchange, but that's not in Switzerland politically. The deployment is, as DNS has multiple layers of redundancy, it's an anycast provider, so it is a global anycast provider with global load balancing. Every location operates autonomously, but there are also failovers and also requests that send from one front end to a back end in another location. That's also possible. They're typically installed in internet exchanges, as you have a good connectivity here. They run on Cisco UCS systems. Currently, these are M5, so these are not the newest one, and most of them are either donated or bought off lease. They have network connectivity of 10 gig at least, so in the big locations they have multiple 10 gig connections to answer DNS queries. What is the software stack? The front end is DNS dist that does the load balancing, and on the back end there are 3 resolvers, that is power DNS, unbound, and bind. And they're all equally deployed so that in case you have one failure or one vulnerability, you can still continue with the others. They run on Linux. There is a stack from Prometheus, Grafana, Kafka, and other open source applications that are used for logging and visualization. And Quad9 is also distributing most of its changes back to the open source community. I said there's monitoring, but monitoring also is privacy aware. So what Quad9, for example, monitors is the use by prefixes. So that should avoid to collect any personal information. How can ISPs and network operators use Quad9? ISPs, like any user, can use Quad9 for free. I think the reason why you want to do so is that you have the filtering for malware and phishing. I think every one of you knows how to run a recursive resolver, but to implement filters, that's a bit harder. And so one way of do this, and that's the preferred way, is to forward all queries to Quad9, and so you have the advantages of filtering, and also Quad9 doesn't see the end user's IPs. If you want to do that, please contact Quad9 if you have a substantial amount of users. And be aware that Quad9 doesn't filter the gambling sites in Switzerland, so still that's one thing you have to do. As I said, Quad9 has some issues in a German court with Sony Music, and I think is happy for all support. And yeah, you can sponsor Quad9, you can donate hardware, or you can simply use Quad9 so that Quad9 is able to be a sustainable service that is available for free and can keep up with its competitors who have a business model which is maybe not so good for the privacy of end users. And with that, are there any questions?
Okay, then
Thank you.
Thank you very much.